Good afternoon, folks. Today we're going to talk about Invincible. They came out with a new episode yesterday. And since Falcon and the Winter Soldier and Invincible, well, no, since Falcon and the Winter Soldier comes out today, Friday, I figured I would just watch both and then do reviews for them. I'll probably do Falcon and the Winter Soldier later in the day because I don't feel like looking at it right now. But all right, we're here. So, episode 4 released, and it was pretty good. I liked it. So we start off, we're in the desert. There's this guy who shows up, and um, he ends up resurrecting something from the dead. And shocker, it doesn't go the way he wants to. I love, you know what I love? I love when dumb people resurrect someone from the dead, or they Pepper, stop. They lift someone up from the tombs and it doesn't go the way they planned. Like, no shit. Don't bring back the dead. It's a very simple rule. So I'm like, you dummy. So we cut from that. Mark and Nolan, or Omni-Man, because Nolan is so boring. I think I'll only call him Nolan when he's with Debbie. Right? So we cut, and Mark and Omni-Man are doing some training. They're racing, whatever. And they get back home and we find out Mark has a date with Amber. So I was like, this is cute. This is cute. So it's his first date. He's 17. And so they go on the date and it's pretty cute. They go to this fair, I think, and Amber's telling Mark how she she does volunteer work and she goes out of town to help people. She went to the Philippines recently, and Mark is like, "Oh wow, that's great." I think he ends up buying her something from the fair. It was a rice separator. It's like, "Oh, that's cute." I like them. They're cute. I feel like it's done a lot better in the series than in the comics, because in the comics, at least to me, Amber didn't really have much of a personality outside of being Mark's girlfriend. So I didn't really care about her like that. But in this series, Amber is revamped. She seems to actually have a personality, and I can get with that. I like it. And I like how her and Mark interact. It's really cute. So the date ends and they kiss. Mwah. Um, they kiss, and what's it called? She's like, "Look, I want a second date. Are you down?" And he's like, "Well, shit. Okay, sure." So that goes pretty well. In the meanwhile, remember last episode? I don't know if I talked about it last episode, but the robot man who's a part of the TT, the teen team or whatever, he ends up freeing the Mauler twins from prison for whatever ulterior motive he has. I don't know what is going on with that. It's a little crazy at this point. I don't know what's going on. So anywho, the Mauler twin is in this hideout and he basically clones himself again. So we're gonna see him soon. I don't know in what capacity they're gonna come back in. I guess for whatever the robot's plan is. So the new Guardians get to their new base, which was the old base for the old Guardians. And it's we find out that Samson Black, I think that's his name, he was actually an original member. I don't know what happened with that. I don't know why my Black King got cut from the group. Maybe there was a disagreement. I'm sure we'll find out later in the series. I hope we find out later in the series. Well, let's talk about Debbie. So Debbie, after the visit with Damien Darkblood, she is starting to suspect Nolan. I mean, up to this point, he's been very distant. He's been, he has a real short fuse. He catches attitudes real quick. So she's starting to suspect, maybe Damien Darkblood is, not wrong. Maybe my husband has a part in this, and, I don't know. And Nolan is not helping his case because he still has a short fuse. He's still catching an attitude. And essentially, when Mark comes home from the date, Cecil is already there. Cecil is the head of that secret government agency. I'm starting to remember names, so yay me. But anyways, Cecil is at the house and he's trying to convince Nolan to go to space and protect these four astronauts because they're about to go to Mars. And Nolan's essentially like, no, 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 no. And that's him and not fucking with authority. Whatever. He doesn't like authority. But Mark is like, sure, I'll do it. Whatever. Um, and during this period when Omni Man is going back and forth with Cecil about, I'm not going to Mars. It's not my responsibility. Mark interjects like, maybe not yours, but it's mine. I feel like this is my time. This is what I was, this is what I'm here to do. Like, why don't I do it? And Omni Man's trying to convince him to see things his way, but Mark is kind of like, no. And I feel like this is the beginning of that building tension in their relationship because you can tell Mark is coming into himself and finding out who he is as a person and as a hero. And he's starting to see that, some of his ideals and what he sees as being a hero don't match up with his father's. And that's probably going to come into play later on in the series. So he accepts the mission and turns out it's a 2-week mission. So he's going to miss some school. So he goes to, he goes to Eve for some advice as to like how to deal with this. How do I tell Amber what's going on? Do I tell her who I am? Like, what's happening? And we see a little spark between them. You can tell she's kind of feeling him a little bit, but she's not going to cross that line because he's with Amber and she respects that. So, Eve's like, look, if you tell her, you can't really come back from that. So if that's your plan, you need to be serious with her. And I was like, okay, they've been dating for about, has it been a week, 2 weeks? It's been less than a month. So I'm hoping, he wasn't going to take that route. But he ends up not doing that. He ends up going to Amber, lying, saying, I'm going to go volunteer, da da da. Please don't lose interest in me. Amber's like, hello, of course not. And they kiss, and it's so cute. I love their beginning of the relationship. I love it. It's so cute. So Mark accepts the mission and he's off to Mars. So he gets on the shuttle and he rides it to Mars. And once he gets there, he realizes, like, I think he looks away for like a second and all four astronauts are gone. And he's like, oh shit, where did they go? And it turns out that the Martians captured them. They actually name drop, I think, Martian Manhunter. So that was interesting. It's like, oh, okay. But anywho, so, the Martians ended up capturing them. And once Mark meets with their leader, he tells them, like, no, look, these humans need to be executed because we can't take a chance that they're going to be subject to the squids, the little squid thingies. I think what is it? I think they call them squeeds. I think he calls them squeeds, but I'll definitely put a picture up. They're basically parasites. Like, I'm really bad with comparisons, but I guess a parasite is the best way to describe it. But in terms of like comic books, if you know of that villain Starro, he's like this huge, he's this star with an eye in the middle, and he's essentially like that. He's like a parasite. He'll latch onto you and take control of you and do with as he pleases. And he's got like hundreds of them. And it's the same thing here. So the squids are like parasites, and if you come in contact with them, it's not a good look. Basically, they have the power to, overtake wherever they are, and take over the planet. So Mark is like, okay, I get it. And then it cuts, and they're like running for their lives back to the ship. It was so funny. So after they get to the ship, Mark is like trying to fight off the Martians. He's like, get away, get away, get away. And we find out a little bit earlier when he first arrives on Mars, that he is not affected by the squids. And I'm sure that's going to come into play later, because once the astronauts escape and they're on the shuttle, it turns out that one of them has the squid on them. It was like on his patch of the American flag. And I was like, oh shit, they're coming to Earth. And this is going to be a huge deal. And it turns out also that one of the astronauts stayed behind, I guess. I thought there were four. Were there five astronauts or four? Because one of them ended up staying behind because he was infected with the squid. And, they ended up having a coup on fucking Mars with the Martians. So we'll see where that goes, right? So after that happens, Mark gets back. All the while, okay, so while this is happening, while Mark is gone, Debbie confronts Nolan about everything that's been happening recently. He's been distant. Like, I don't like this. You're hiding something from me, and I don't like it. And, Nolan's like, look, I'm sorry. I didn't think we'd have a family, and I'm trying to do this right. So he's like, let's go on a trip. And they go to fucking Rome. Superheroes. They can just go wherever they want. So Debbie and Nolan go to Rome. And, this was after Nolan had threatened Damien Darkblood, because he found out, like, Damien Darkblood was in the house and probably talked to Debbie. So he was like, huh. And he knows that Damien Darkblood, he knows that he suspects him of killing the Guardians, which we know he did. And he's trying to act like he just has no recollection of his actions. I do not believe it. He's too in control of himself to not remember doing something like that. I just don't believe it, right? The conversation that Omni-Man has with Damien Darkblood ends up resulting in Omni-Man planting evidence to sort of pin Damien Darkblood as the killer, which we all know is a crock of shit, right? So Cecil ends up intervening, and he confronts Damien Darkblood like, look, we found this evidence. It's DNA from the Guardians. We found it in your office, on your person. Like, this is not a good look. And Damien's like, look, I didn't do this. This was Nolan, and he planted it. And Cecil's like, look, I know. And I was like, huh. I don't know. Like, he says, so as punishment, they exorcise Damien Darkblood because he's a demon, right? And he's like, look, you see things as black and white. I need to keep things gray and figure out why Nolan killed the Guardians. And it's like, I get it. You want to keep suspicion off of Nolan's back. I get it. But I feel like this wasn't the way to go about it. Like, you shouldn't have had to exorcise him. Ugh. I know you want to figure out why. He's a power, Omni-Man is OP. So I don't know. I guess I can see what he's saying by wanting to keep things gray, but there could have been a better way, right? So anywho, after that happens, after the whole thing with Damien Darkblood, we come back and Mark comes back from the mission. And Debbie, she's telling Mark about her day and how she sold a house for one of the Guardian Globe's wives who ended up leaving to go to Moscow. And, Nolan's like, look, some new evidence came up and I've been cleared. Cecil even apologized to me. And Debbie's like, wow, that's great. He's fooling the hell out of her. But maybe not really, because, Debbie suspects. She suspects something. So it was a good episode. It was a good episode. And we end with this scene where the robot man, I gotta figure out his name because I can't call him robot so the robot man from the team, he goes up to this pod. Now, mind you, earlier in the episode, Robot Man was talking to Rex. He was talking to Rex, and you could tell he sort of sees Rex as like a liability. You can tell. And he puts his hand on his shoulder and like pricks him basically and gets blood from Rex, without Rex's knowledge. So at the end of the episode, he goes up to this pod and he hands this like disgusting baby. It looked disgusting. It's like a deformed baby. He like holds up the vial of Rex's blood, and the baby's like, great, now phase one can begin. And I think the baby's name was Robot. I I feel like I remember him from the comics, but I don't know what his part was. I don't really remember all of that. So this will be a nice little surprise for me. But that baby looks familiar. That deformed, ugly baby looks familiar. But he calls himself Robot. And then the episode ends. And I'm like, oh, jeez. So this was a good episode. I liked it. I liked it a lot. Gave us a little bit of insight. We're still trying to weave through the mystery of why Nolan killed the Guardians, because we still don't know. We still don't know why Omni-Man killed the Guardians. And we're gonna find out. I don't believe this little charade he's playing. Like, he doesn't remember what he did. That man remembers what he did. It's why. And maybe it has something to do with, Mr. Robot, the deformed baby. So we'll see. We'll see next week where the story's gonna go. And yeah, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you guys on the next episode.